Welcome to Van Life with Steve, and thank you for joining me for part 2 of my visit to Mount Rainier National Park, which is located in Washington State. So we're going to forego any park summaries or anything like that. I will put a card to last week's episode where we visited the Paradise section of the park. I'll put a card so you can go check out that video if you like. Paradise is probably the most popular section of the park, and then the second most popular is Sunrise, where we're at here. Before heading up to the visitor center, we're going to take in the amazing sunrise, and I'm not quite sure if that's Crystal Mountain or not, but that was pretty cool. So we'll hop back into the van and head over to the visitor center. I do want you to note that unlike last week's episode, there are no clouds around the summit of Mount Rainier on this morning. The Sunrise Visitor Center actually closed like the day or 2 days before I got here. It closes for the season, so I decided to go ahead and hop on the Fremont Lookout Trail. Here's a closer look at what is the northeastern face of the mountain. The little peak there is Little Tahoma Peak, which in and of itself, or if it was by itself, it would actually be a pretty tall mountain on its own. And it's a very famous feature on Mount Rainier. So for the Mount Fremont Lookout Trail, as you can imagine, you're going to hike around Mount Fremont and you get spectacular views of, I guess, these mountain valleys, and you get just terrific views of Mount Rainier and the surrounding mountains. There's a look at the fire lookout there, and it's just a really incredible view. You can see for 50, 100 miles maybe. There's a look inside the lookout that is closed to the public, so I've seen where some people will camp in those. You can't camp in this one. So as we take a closer look at some of these spectacular views, the Mount Fremont Lookout Trail is 5.6 miles round trip and features an elevation gain of 900 feet. And you add that to the fact that Sunrise is the highest elevation section of the park that you can access by vehicle, and it starts out at about 6,400 feet. So here you're at over 7,000 feet. So you're at high altitude. This is a very long hike, and it does have a lot of elevation gain. So this is a strenuous hike, but so worth it. In the distance there, those little white dots, those are mountain goats. And we'll be taking a closer look at the glaciers. To the left is the Emmons Glacier, and to the right is the Winthrop Glacier. If you're enjoying this content, I appreciate it so much. If you please give me a like, and please consider subscribing if you want to see more episodes. Also, if you've been to Mount Rainier National Park and have a special memory of the park, or if you have a special tip for visiting the park, I'd really love to hear about it. So please leave any special memories or tips about the park in the comments below. Thanks so much, and let's continue with the video. So now I'm going to head on back down the trail, and I kind of looped back a different way. I didn't go back the same way I came, just to get some different views and everything. And you do kind of walk through this forest here, and it gives you a different look, where you have the trees framing the mountain. And it's just incredible, spectacular, amazing, whatever superlative you want to use. This is just a fantastic thing to see. So here's a closer look at the Emmons Glacier. Very top, you'll see the summit of the mountain. So as I mentioned last week, Mount Rainier is the most heavily glaciered mountain in the contiguous United States. It has more named glaciers on it than in all of Rainier National Park. Glaciers essentially form when snowfall is greater than snow melt. But as a native Floridian, glacier is something I'm quite a bit unfamiliar with, and as we'll see in a episode a while from now, I'll encounter some snowfields on a different mountain, and this stuff is very, these glaciers and snowfields, they're very cool to look at, but you really don't want to be hiking through these things. It makes things, any sort of mountain climbing, very dangerous. Mount Rainier is an extremely serious mountain. As we look at Little Tahoma Peak, there's at least one account of some people that successfully summited Everest climbing Mount Rainier and perishing on the mountain. A couple rangers there told me a few sad stories of people that tried to climb the mountain unprepared, and they weren't experienced or didn't know how to handle these snowfields and everything, and they say it happens pretty much every year that somebody will fall into a crevice and, they don't find them until after the snow melts later in the year. It's pretty sad. The other thing about Mount Rainier is you do get these, valleys are a little bit wider than Rainier National Park, but you do get similar views as you do in Glacier and North Cascades, with just all these amazing mountain and mountain valleys. It's just really, really terrific sight. So after completing the Fremont Lookout Trail, I did take a break for lunch, and then in the afternoon I decided to get on the Naches Peak Trail, which is actually in the Wenatchee, I think that's how it's pronounced, National Forest that is just to the east of the national park. Here's a look at Lake Dewey, which Mount Rainier does not reflect in Lake Dewey, but it is a terrific view in and of itself. You can hike down to that lake. I passed on that. The reason to get on this hike is to get a picture of Mount Rainier reflecting in Tipsoo Lake, and it was recommended to me to hike this trail counterclockwise. As you can see, if you remember back to the beginning of this video, I wanted you to note how clear the sky was, and now we're here in the afternoon and almost the entire mountain is covered up by clouds. So this was something that I really should have done in the morning, and how about that'll be our tip for the video. So if you ever do the Naches Peak Trail, make sure you do it in the morning so you can get that picture of Mount Rainier reflecting in the lake. But nevertheless, I got a great view of the mountain in the morning from the earlier trail. This is still an amazing hike. You come across those lakes and just a wonderful experience. Really enjoyed it. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this look at second day at Mount Rainier. Again, Mount Rainier is my third favorite national park from the 45 national parks I've visited. And so I definitely recommend anybody visit Mount Rainier at some point in your life. It's a really terrific park. I want to thank you so very much for joining me for this episode, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks and take care. Bye.